Del Crandall was the kind of catcher championship teams are built around. He played in an era filled with famous names: Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Warren Spahn, Lou Burdett. And because of that, it's easy for Crandall to disappear into the background of those great Milwaukee Braves teams. But if you were a pitcher, Del Crandall was anything but background. Born in Ontario, California, Crandall signed with the Boston Braves while still a teenager. He didn't spend years slowly climbing through the minor leagues. In 1949, at just 19 years of age, he was already in the majors. That alone was remarkable for a catcher. Catching is a position built around experience, learning hitters, understanding pitchers, controlling a running game, knowing when to visit the mound and when to leave a pitcher alone. Crandall was being asked to learn all of that, while most players his age were still several levels away from the major leagues. His career was interrupted when he entered military service during the Korean War. But by the time he returned in 1953, something else had changed. The Braves weren't in Boston anymore. They were in Milwaukee, and Del Crandall was about to become one of the central figures in one of baseball's great teams of the 1950s. Crandall took over as the Braves' regular catcher, and suddenly he was working with one of the finest pitching staffs in baseball. Warren Spahn, Lou Burdett, Bob Buell. Those weren't simply talented pitchers. They were pitchers who trusted their catcher. Burdett once said that he hardly ever had to shake Crandall off because Crandall understood what he wanted to throw. That's the hidden art of catching. Fans see the pitch. They don't always see the thought that came before it. For much of the 1950s, Milwaukee was almost constantly in contention. Aaron and Matthews supplied enormous offensive firepower, but Crandall gave the Braves stability behind the plate. And he wasn't merely there to catch. Crandall could hit. He had legitimate home run power for a catcher, and every once in a while, that power produced something unforgettable. In 1955, Milwaukee was trailing Philadelphia by 3 runs with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Crandall came to the plate with the bases loaded. Grand slam, game over. But his reputation was built primarily with the glove. Crandall had a strong throwing arm, handled pitchers beautifully, and became one of the great defensive catchers of his generation. When Gold Gloves were introduced, he immediately became one of the position's dominant winners, eventually taking 4 of them. He also caught 3 no-hitters. Think about what that means. 3 different games where pitch after pitch, inning after inning, the catcher and pitcher had to stay completely locked together. Crandall caught a no-hitter by Jim Wilson in 1954. Then in 1960, he caught another from Lou Burdett. And less than a month later, another from Warren Spahn. And Spahn and Crandall developed one of baseball's great pitcher-catcher partnerships. They started more than 300 games together. For years, theirs was the standard for longevity between a pitcher and catcher. Then came 1957. The Milwaukee Braves won the National League pennant and faced the New York Yankees in the World Series. The Yankees were baseball royalty. Milwaukee wasn't intimidated. This series went 7 games, and Crandall was behind the plate as the Braves tried to finish one of the greatest seasons in franchise history. In Game 7 at Yankee Stadium, Lou Burdett delivered a shutout, and Del Crandall added an exclamation point. He homered. Milwaukee won 5-0. The Braves were World Series champions. For a catcher whose identity was built around helping pitchers prevent runs, there was something perfect about Crandall catching a shutout and contributing a home run in the game that won Milwaukee its championship. A year later, the Braves and Yankees met again. Once again, the series reached Game 7, and once again, Crandall homered. This time, though, there would be no championship celebration. The Yankees came back and reclaimed the title. Still, by the end of the 1950s, Del Crandall had established himself as one of baseball's premier catchers. He was chosen as an All-Star across 8 different seasons, appearing in 11 All-Star games, during an era when baseball sometimes played 2 All-Star games in the same year. Then baseball reminded him how demanding catching can be. A shoulder injury cost Crandall most of the 1961 season. While he was out, a young catcher named Joe Torre received his opportunity with Milwaukee. Crandall returned in 1962 and proved he wasn't finished. In fact, he produced one of the finest offensive seasons of his career, made another All-Star team, and won another Gold Glove. But baseball generations turn quickly. Torre was becoming the Braves catcher of the future. After the 1963 season, Crandall's long run with the Braves came to an end. He spent his final years as a veteran catcher with the San Francisco Giants, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Cleveland Indians before playing his last major league game in 1966. By then, Del Crandall had experienced almost everything a catcher could experience. He had broken into the majors as a teenager. He had lost 2 seasons to military service. He had caught no hitters. He had caught one of the greatest pitchers who ever lived. He had played alongside Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews. He had homered in 2 different 7th games of the World Series. And most importantly, he had been behind the plate when the Milwaukee Braves became champions of baseball. Del Crandall wasn't the biggest star on those Braves teams. He didn't need to be. He was the man the stars trusted. And for a catcher, there may be no greater compliment than that. I'm Mr. Baseball, and this has been Players, a Smell Baseball podcast.